There was a time in my early years when I believed leadership was something reserved for the chosen few, something handed out with a title, a corner office, or a shiny badge that said authority. I used to think leaders were born already carrying wisdom in their pockets, walking into the world with an invisible crown that the rest of us could only admire from a distance. But life has a way of teaching us truths when we least expect them. And my greatest lesson arrived wrapped inside a small, unexpected moment in a place most people overlook. I once worked with a man named Daniel, a quiet fellow who seemed ordinary at first glance. He wasn't the loudest in the room. He wasn't the one people rushed to greet. And he certainly wasn't the kind of person others would point to and say, "Now there goes a leader." But I began to notice something unusual about him. Wherever Daniel went, things worked better. Teams that were once slow started moving faster. People who argued began cooperating. Problems that piled up suddenly found solutions. And the strange part was, Daniel never asked for credit. He simply walked into a space, made things better, and left without applause. One day I finally asked him, "How do you do it? How do you lead without trying to lead?" He smiled and said something I'll never forget. He said, "Leadership begins the moment you decide to take responsibility for more than your job. When you take responsibility for the people, the energy, and the progress around you, leadership follows you like a shadow." That sentence changed the way I see leadership forever. Because the truth is, great leaders don't start by leading others. They start by leading themselves. They begin with discipline. They begin with character. They begin with the hard decision to hold themselves to a higher standard than the world expects. You can't demand excellence from others if you haven't demanded it from yourself. You can't ask for commitment from a team if you're unwilling to show commitment when no one is watching. A leader's first test is the mirror, not the meeting room. And I want you to know something. People don't follow titles, they follow strength. Not the kind of strength that intimidates or pushes people down, but the strength that lifts people up, opens doors, and inspires them to become more than they believed they could be. I've seen leaders with power and no influence, and I've seen leaders with influence and no power. I've learned that the second group runs the world quietly without announcing it. A great leader understands that leadership is not domination, it is invitation. You invite others to believe in a vision, and then you live in a way that makes the vision real in your everyday behavior. When your actions match your words, trust is built. And when trust is built, people follow you not because they have to, but because they want to. I once watched a company fall apart, not because of the economy, not because of competition, but because those at the top forgot that leadership begins with example. They demanded standards they did not live. They preached teamwork while practicing ego. They expected loyalty while giving none. And when the storm came, the structure collapsed because its foundation was built on words, not actions. Contrast that with another leader I met years later, a woman named Maria who ran a small business with big impact. People loved working with her. They spoke of her with respect that felt almost rare in this world. I once asked an employee, "What makes her such a powerful leader?" The employee answered, "She never asks us to do anything she hasn't already done herself. When she says it, we believe it. And when times get tough, she's always the first one standing with us." That is leadership, not speeches, not authority, not commands, but example. Another secret of great leadership is understanding that people don't grow by being controlled. They grow by being empowered. A leader is like a farmer. You can't pull the seed out of the ground and yell at it for not growing fast enough. You can't force a plant to bloom by impatience. A leader creates an environment where people choose to thrive because they feel safe, respected, and valued. You create the soil, the sunshine, the water, and people grow. And here's something else. Leaders are learners. Every great leader I have ever met has been a student long before they became a teacher. They listened more than they spoke. They asked more questions than they answered. They studied the patterns of success, the mistakes of failure, and the wisdom of those who walked before them. They understood something profound. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop leading. Back in my early days, I believed leadership was about being the smartest in the room. Today, I know leadership is about being the most committed in the room. Committed to growth, to truth, to fairness, to courage. Committed to the long game when others quit at the first setback. Leaders don't wait for the perfect moment. They create progress with imperfect steps. Now let's talk about one more thing: courage. Leadership requires courage because every leader faces the risk of criticism, misunderstanding, and failure. But a great leader knows that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important than fear. If you fail, you learn. If you fall, you rise. If you face resistance, you grow stronger. Leaders are not fearless. They are bold enough to move forward despite fear. So, how do you become a great leader? You begin with your character. You continue with your actions. You build with your words, you expand with your example, and you elevate others by helping them reach their highest potential. Don't wait for a title. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Congratulations, you are now a leader." Start today. Start right where you are. Start by being the person who brings clarity where others bring confusion, who brings calm where others bring chaos, who brings discipline where others bring laziness, and who brings hope where others bring doubt. If you practice that daily, people will begin to notice. They will begin to follow. And one day, you will wake up and realize that leadership wasn't something you chased. It was something you became through consistency, courage, and character. A great leader is not defined by authority, but by responsibility. Not by power, but by example. Not by controlling others, but by elevating them. Leadership begins the moment you decide to lead yourself first.